What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of V2 Sports Recap. We had an extremely busy weekend, and here we go. In a world where Vanderbilt wins their first conference game since 2019 and Tennessee is relevant, we have a new underdog. The LSU Tigers, clinching their first SEC championship berth since 2019. Coincidentally, the last time Vandy won a conference game. All right, y'all are. I'll go ahead and take my round of applause for that very horrible movie intro. Let's go ahead and get into the recap. All right, where do y'all want to start first? What game disappointed you
You know
the
what?
most?
Might as well start with the most hated, South Carolina versus Vanderbilt.
All
I
right,
mean, not Vanderbilt, Florida.
Great idea,
if you
Mr.
can't
Clean.
tell, like I said, or
Thank you.
I'm gonna go ahead and let y'all know, and I'll give y'all a nice little reminder. We're gonna be doing this all week. If you want to go ahead and hop off Spotify right now and come over to the YouTube channel, we have currently 6 Mr. Cleans in the chat. Okay, if you want to know what Jackson looks like after he had to shave his head for picking South Carolina versus Florida, we have 6 pictures, so you cannot miss it. Okay, can't miss it at all. So let's go ahead and cover the South Carolina-Florida game like Mr. Clean said.
Yeah, I have no words for how
Or
bad
hair.
my pick was. I you could obviously see in the photo of how bad South Carolina
Your
played.
take was so hot that it literally took the hair off your head.
Yeah,
Exactly.
facts.
His take was so
But
shiny it beams off
no,
that gigantic dome.
nah, bro. Let me tell you something. Florida absolutely dominated this game. Anthony Richardson dominated this game. Uh, South
Almost like
Carolina,
what I
South
said.
Carolina and Florida both beat themselves in the third quarter. I don't know what happened in that. Like that has to be the worst third quarter in football I've ever seen from either team.
Hey,
But
remember when you didn't agree with me for saying that Anthony Richardson would be the difference in this game?
he wasn't
Yeah.
the difference. It was the Florida defense that was the difference.
Florida's
Mm.
defense and the running game.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I'm a big
How
honest
many
in that
yards of
game.
offense was there for Florida at halftime? I think over
200
300.
rushing yards,
Here's the
Yeah.
thing. Good
The
lord.
the
Yeah, no, I
difference
didn't watch it.
no, listen,
282 in the first half.
let's be honest, the
Wow.
difference, whenever there's a difference, it means it signifies the fact that if this wasn't available, then the game would have been a lot different. I feel
If
like
Florida's
there
defense
was
wasn't
no
available,
difference. No, I'm saying that I feel like there were a lot of things,
Wasn't on the
like as in
field.
there is no difference. Florida just
Florida's
overall
defense.
overpowered South Carolina.
Yeah, agreed.
The only thing that I would have been interested to see is if there would have been a healthy Marshawn Lloyd in the backfield. If
Yeah,
that would have been a key thing to that game, because we all know, and every single one of the individuals in this podcast has said how mid Spencer Rattler is.
yeah.
Jackson has ceased to realize that. Have you finally realized how mid
I don't think
Spencer
he was the
Rattler
reason
is?
we lost, but I think if we
Oh,
had Dak
good
Joyner,
God.
no. I think if we had Dak Joyner in at quarterback that game, we would have had a better chance. Because Dak Joyner is probably was the definite best player of the game. He's the player of the game. Him or Kai Kroger, whoever you want to put in. I'd say it's Dak Joyner. That every single time he was in, he made a big play. He does it every single time. He's been South Carolina's difference maker, and they never play him at what he should be. I mean,
I think this is just a tale for two teams right now. We're seeing the downhill fall of South Carolina currently,
and
and
Florida's on
it
a slow
it
rise.
looks like they're not doing too hot, and then Florida looks like they're finally finding their identity and the direction that Billy Napier's wanting that program to go to.
So, can we actually not step over the fact that Big Boy Dez yanked the ball from the South Carolina running back's hands?
Yeah, I that wasn't a running back. That was Jaheim Bell.
No, it's a
I don't
glorified
care.
running back. It's okay.
Put that picture in the museum.
The big boy was stumbling, tumbling, and out of breath before he got out of the pile. All right. I 100% loved watching this game. V2 actually did a huge thing this past weekend where we all sat in the very same Discord call that y'all are listening to right now and watched most of the SEC games.
Bro,
It was the
another
funniest. Oh, you shut up! It was the funniest thing in the world for us to cut the South Carolina game off after the first quarter and switch it to a non-conference game because I just don't think that they should be putting that stuff on air. You know,
bro.
that was a live beating. We just watched animal abuse. Somebody just slayed a gamecock in the middle of a swamp. Like,
It's
come
not
on.
even like this was a great team. I mean, Florida's good, but at the end of the day, you wouldn't really expect Anthony Richardson to absolutely brutalize South Carolina and the 7 fans that cheer for the team currently. I mean, I honestly feel bad for everyone who participated as well as watched that game, including myself,
I
because
watched
I
it for all
watched that
4
game.
quarters.
I did too. I was there,
We were all
and
in
I
there.
am really mad that I did watch that game. I could have spent my time on some. I could have called my mom. I could have written a letter to my cousin asking if he's doing all right. I could have done so many things with my time,
Luke
but
could
I
have finished
chose
up
to
all his
watch
homework
that.
he has. Come on.
I could have, shaven my head and called myself Mr. Clean, but Jackson already
Yeah.
did that. So
On the other hand, I'm kind of glad I didn't watch that because South Carolina got killed, and that's all there really is to say.
Yeah. All right.
You want to talk about a segue? If you thought that was bad to watch, then a lot of people probably needed to divert their eyes to what happened to to the 101,000 people that watched a Tiger get absolutely obliterated in Neyland Stadium this last Saturday.
Dude, no, I thought it was hilarious how literally with 2 minutes left in the game, Tennessee did not stop.
to be honest, I don't
Like,
respect that. I
I
lost a lot of
respect
respect
that.
for No, I lost a lot of respect for
There's
Tennessee in
not.
that.
You can
That was
lose
bad.
respect. Okay, I'm gonna
There's
say
not
this
a lot
right.
of teams
You can lose
that
respect.
do that, and I actually love that they do
Do
that.
y'all actually
Okay,
know why
I
they did
wanna-
that? I would like to point
It's
that
because
one
of
out.
Eli Drinkwitz calling
Please
out
explain.
It was because
Josh
Drinkwitz
Heupel in the preseason.
did it.
That is exactly why he
Called
took
out
jabs.
Heupel in the
Here's why
preseason, and
you
Hype
don't
used to
take
coach at
jabs.
Missouri.
So he took jabs at Eli Drinkwitz took jabs at Heupel for his time at Missouri, among other things. And just like he put the score from last year's game in his back pocket, Heupel put that in his back pocket, and then upped the score to 66 instead of 62, doing Drinkwitz a favor and hopefully getting him out of Missouri quicker.
Well,
No,
here's the
they
funniest
they
part about
legit
it.
assigned his extension like not even a few weeks ago.
Here's
We
the
talked about it
funniest
last
part about it.
episode.
When they went
Yeah, I
to
know.
hire, when Mizzou was finished with their head coach Odom, okay, and they hired Drinkwitz, their best offensive coordinator to that point was Josh Heupel. He could have easily went to head coach. They never called him. Hype has something against Mizzou, and I think anybody in the SEC is going to have to watch this for like the next 5 years to come of him, I don't care, or putting in the backups and still running up the score. I think he's
And
proving a
just
point in
this-
Missouri and Drink.
This is also, you have to look right now, Tennessee is on the outside looking in by one spot for the CFP. And what this was, and you can love it or hate it for what they did, was style points. The more you beat somebody by, they're going to take notice. And Missouri at the time had the 13th best defense and hadn't allowed more than 24 points in a game. So they're going to take note of that. The CFP rankings aren't out yet. They'll be out this Tuesday. But they'll take notice of that. And
Which means
to
he'll
be
be
fair,
out
they
later
probably
today.
won't.
Just letting y'all know.
So you also have to look at that. You can love them or hate them for, and it. I mean, the real thing is, you should have stopped them from running. Even Drinkwitz himself said it. If you don't want the score ran up on you, don't let it happen. Be a stout defense like you're supposed to be, Missouri, but you couldn't, and you let second and third stringers drop another 10 points on you.
Dog, how do you let the opposing team?
You let Joe Milton throw a 70-yard ball on a rope to a freshman Squirrel White who runs 23 miles an hour.
How do
You
do
let that happen.
How do you have the 13th best defense in the nation? Let second stringers come out with 2 minutes left, and they're like, "Oh, it's gonna be easy," and then like the quarterback that all Tennessee fans hated last year, started to love him again this year, and he just comes out and just just nuts on
And
table.
keep in mind, Missouri. Keep in mind, Missouri was in this game for a decent amount. At one point, it was 28-24. So if anything, they just quit playing the game because it's not running up the score if they asked for it.
So
It's
Luke,
66 points. But if
What's
you're going
up?
to call out
are you
if you're
still
going to
holding
call
a
out
grudge against
Tennessee
Tennessee
for
after
dropping
what we brought
66
to your
points, you have to do the same
brought
thing
to
to
the
what
table?
USC did, dropping as many points as they did.
I'll be
You can't
honest.
just Tennessee.
Considering the new information, because I'm a person who likes to learn more, and I will change my opinion when I've been proven wrong. Today I was proven wrong. Totally deserved. I respect you guys for telling me the real situation. I just thought it was out of being
I knew
rude
it.
to the
I knew it as soon as they
opposition.
told.
Wasn't rude.
So I'll give it to
But
you. That was a
I'll
W
say
by Tennessee.
I'll say this really quickly. If anybody is going to call out Tennessee for running up the score and being bad sports for dropping 60 on a team that couldn't stop the points coming down, you also have to call out USC for basically doing the same thing.
Honestly. So let's go ahead and move on
Can't have it both ways.
to our next game. How did y'all actually feel? You know what? Me and Luke watched this game. Let's go ahead and talk about the Mississippi State and Georgia game.
Dude, let me tell you
Okay.
something. This game was way closer than the score showed, man.
The first
Until
thing, or wait, actually finish, Jackson. I'll let you finish.
Okay. Now, until Georgia came away in the I thought Mississippi State was actually having a chance in the first half. I watched the first half of this game and I was like,
first half, not
why
gonna
is
lie.
Mississippi State giving Georgia a battle? And then I see Lad McConkey with that 70-yard run, and then I see him get another touchdown, and I'm like, this game's over. And then I think Mississippi State goes on a comeback, and then you know what happens? Georgia scores 2 more times.
All right, let me explain
Yeah.
to y'all
So look.
this from
And
mine and Luke's point of
Stetson
view.
Bennett,
Yeah.
Okay, so me and Luke are watching this game and we see the blowout happening, right? So, like Luke has made known to all of us, Luke goes to Florida State, so we swapped it over to the Florida State game. So I cut it back when ESPN gives me a noti that Mississippi State returned a punt at halftime, or right before halftime. So we see that. So we see it going to halftime, and we forget to switch it back when the game comes back on air. So Florida State goes into halftime, and the second we switch it back, here's Lad McConkey just throwing people across the field and running for 70, and both of us are just like, there's no point in watching this game. Like, how can you...
What's even funnier is we didn't even see the clip. We just heard that he ran for 70 yards for a touchdown. We just heard "Oh, he could go! He could go all the way!" And we just immediately flipped it back off.
Like, it didn't even load the screen up yet. We just had audio. So all you hear is, he's throwing him off. He's going. Oh my gosh. And both was just, yeah, no, we're going to go ahead and close this window.
And let's not ignore the fact that Stetson Bennett put one of Mississippi State's defenders on an absolute ice skate who
Yep.
needed a map.
But
He
here's the
was
thing.
so lost.
I decided because I'm in a state group chat, and I saw that a few of the people who went to the school were at the game, and they told me that the refs were horrendous, and I was thinking, the score doesn't say that, but you know what? I'm gonna go back and watch the film. So I did. For 2 hours, I watched the game over again today, and I will be honest when I say the refs sold the bag. There were multiple plays where Mississippi State should have either scored or Georgia scored that should have been called back that they didn't give. And I'm not saying that that changes the game. Mississippi State wins. No, Mississippi State was losing this game regardless. But if the refs simply weren't on the Mr. Clean drugs that they were, the products, this game would have been a lot closer, and it would have showed that there are weaknesses to Georgia. Specifically that when they play bad teams, they do worse. With that
Yeah.
being said, this was still a blowout. But to the credit, that punt return touchdown was pretty cool.
And it's not even just this game specifically that refs have been bad. It's not even really the sport of football or just college. It's every sport. Refs everywhere have been a new. It's like they all took, and I know this is a football podcast and an SEC podcast, but I'm gonna make a joke about it. It seems like every ref for every sport sat down with Angel Hernandez and took lessons from him, and then they are all just carbon copies of him, making the
Yep.
worst calls and ruining games for everybody to watch.
I completely agree.
Right.
It was
I'm
miserable
gonna
to
say
see that what little motivation Mississippi State had was completely
So-
taken away from the refs selling the bag to a number 1 team in the country.
Bad officiating and Tennessee fans and any other fan base that has been screwed over, like take the hit, the Jadeveon Clowney hit way back, the hit heard around the world. That play is never set up by a terrible blown call, and take bad officiating ruins really good games.
100%.
Facts.
All right. So I also didn't watch this game, but I did. I did check in at halftime, and I saw it was 17-12, and I was kind of shocked. It was confusing me on how Georgia was struggling against Mississippi State, but then I remembered Georgia did the same thing against Kent State and Missouri. Yeah, thank you. And then I was like, but we all know Georgia's going to come back out of nowhere, and they're just going to destroy Mississippi State. And I look back, and it's 45-19. And I'm just going to say Georgia blew them out.
I was a closeted State fan. I was like I saw the score at 12 to like 19, and I was first off that's a good score.
Oh, it was so
I was
close.
like,
I was
it would be
rooting
so
for them.
nice for them. Yeah, everybody was rooting for them to win.
Hail State,
I mean,
brothers.
Here's
Hail
the thing,
State.
though, with Georgia is like at some point during each of their games, I feel like that they've played to the point this season, maybe except for Oregon, like they've had a time gap where they kind of take their foot off the gas or they're slow paced. Like you saw it against Kent State, you saw it against Missouri, against Florida, it got to a one score possession game at some point, and then with Mississippi State, they did the same thing, but then. In Georgia, typical Georgia fashion and Kirby Smart fashion, they pick it up and then they end up blowing out a team. And they're rounding into form when the time is important. So,
All right, so I'm glad we all got our talks out about Georgia State just decimating Mizzou with the help of the referees. Let's go ahead and take a nice 10-second, time for the listeners and for us to give Vandy their flowers. Okay, first SEC win in 3
Why are we
years.
putting this game like?
Congratulations.
Why isn't this game last? We save the best for last.
Yeah, let's say I
Because
really
it
do want to
wasn't.
say
It,
Our marquee matchup came down to the last play. Our marquee matchup came
Yeah.
to the last play.
This was still better.
this wasn't the best game.
Yeah, we should still talk about this right now.
Yeah,
And
this
it's
needs to be
just-
talked about right now. Congrats to Vandy. Congrats to Vandy for beating Kentucky. You beat a ranked team.
Wait,
you beat.
Can I talk?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, this is my Mike Wright rant, baby. I told you guys all from preseason to week 1 to week 2. This guy is the guy. This guy has been the guy for Vandy.
Back up from your microphone.
Back away from your microphone.
And this is also the guy.
He is
that-
Mike Wright. He is him, and he is Kentucky's daddy.
Okay.
This is the same guy
I'm
that
gonna take over
barely
here.
beat
I'm
Kentucky.
gonna take over here real quick because I gotta say something. So first off, congrats to Vandy. You deserved it. This
Go
was
Commodores.
awesome. However, I'm gonna bring a point here. This is a message to all mock drafters and analysis and
Will
whoever
Levis is
are
not
in
a first-round pick.
Let me speak.
Preach.
Let me speak. If you are still putting Will Levis in the first round or even the second round of this draft, I hope that you lose your job and lose all ability to provide for your families. I hope that you live in a box under the bridge at your downtown and are fighting for the last scrap of bread, because I don't think you deserve to be in the working field anymore after the stupid belief that you have with this man. He just put up 21 points against Vanderbilt at home and lost.
And he didn't even account for any of those touchdowns.
Yeah.
And
Will
while I
Levis,
was-
Will
you
Levis has
suck.
the Indianapolis Colts written all over it.
I'm going to tell you now, if Will Levis becomes a starting quarterback at any point in his career and that is deserved rather than from injury, and he
What about
does
we make a
well,
deal right
I
now?
will not only shave my head, I will donate $10,000 to any
Okay.
charity that this
We will
crew picks
save
for
this
me.
for next
Okay,
year,
I would
guys.
love to
I'm
know
joking. I'm
where you
joking.
get
He's
that
not gonna
money,
be
but
anything good.
before, okay, how about instead if I'll make 2 deals with you. One, if Will Levis still gets taken in the first round, then the first 10 picks, you have to get a Will Levis tattoo.
Me?
Yes.
In the
Specifically
first
saying,
10?
specifically saying Will Levis is him.
Says,
Specifically
no,
saying
it
Will Levis.
says Willie V for Heisman.
You know what?
Does anybody want to join me in that bet?
Hold on.
Mm-mm.
I will actually bank off of Nate, and I'll make it even better. Okay. So instead, if he goes in the first 10, like he said, you have to get a tattoo. But it can't just be any tattoo. I need Will Levis's face on your right
Uh-oh.
cheek.
Oh my god,
That.
dude.
No, and
I'm-
no,
You
or
gotta do it.
I'm
you
gonna
gotta
be
do
honest.
It,
On the right cheek.
it's either
I'm-
his face or Willie V for
Are you
Heisman.
doubting it? Are you
I'm now
doubting
regretting.
it, Luke?
Hey, I'm gonna be real. I don't want to end up like you, Mr. Clean. I'm gonna be
No.
real.
Especially
Hold on,
with
man.
something permanent.
Underneath the face,
Stuff happens.
Underneath the face, you have to put
How about
in
this?
quotations, Mayo Man.
How about this?
Damn.
I will think about this, and next week I will give you my decision.
That's true.
Okay, that's reasonable.
I want to let
I
you
need
know
to.
I'm
I
a
need to
really
give
good-
this
This is a
some thought.
permanent
I'm a really
decision.
good salesman.
This is a
and I'll
permanent
pitch the
decision.
idea to him. And here, to make it even better for you, so that it doesn't hurt you in two ways. V2
I'll
will
cash
raise
app
the
you
money
$50
and pay
for the
tattoo.
for you to use as well.
V2 will raise the money and pay for this tattoo.
Yeah, and even to add to that, I'll send you independently $50 to use whatever you want. Buy it. Use whatever you want with that 50. If it
I'll
happens.
probably buy a laser to get rid of the tattoo.
It's gonna take all of our money, pay for the tattoo on his own, take a picture of it for promo purposes.
And then get it removed with the $50 that I sent.
Like I said, I'm giving myself a week to think about this.
That's
See, my
understandable.
question to y'all though is, we all know that Kentucky's bad, but does Kentucky being so bad and Will Levis' lack of play overshadow the fact that Vanderbilt just won an SEC game? And I'm not
actually
saying
looked good.
that
They
I'm
looked
not
good.
saying that they're going to win the Natty at all, like in the next 5 years or whatever Clark Lee's timeline is. But is he correct for saying that Vanderbilt is on the rise? Because
Yes.
what was
Oh, yeah.
their
Absolutely.
over-under for
For sure.
win predictions was what, 2? Like, it was not that much.
No, all of us picked Vandy last week.
This game,
every single one of us picked Vandy.
this
I'm
game
saying
completely
before the
changes
season,
the culture for
before the
Vandy.
season began.
I listened
This
back
gives-
to that episode.
this gives them a
4
new
of us
hype.
shows Vandy in this picture as well, or in this game as well.
Okay.
It was me, Mr. Clean.
I mean, I believe I
Hold on.
picked
It was
Vandy
me,
as well.
Mr. Clean, Jaron, and one of our ex-members who we're not allowed to talk about. So, let's go ahead and go to our next game, because we did take a nice little chunk out to congratulate Vandy. Let's go ahead and talk about Auburn finally finding their coach, Cadillac Williams. And
A&M sucks, man.
He's a
A&M.
blind coach who can call better than Jimbo Fisher.
Hey, Jimbo Fisher is the worst play caller in the SEC by far.
Have y'all met
Old
Tennessee's
take.
defensive coordinator?
This was cold take. This was the worst game in the last 10 years of SEC football.
Dude,
I
let me
agree.
tell you something. Hey, guys, who do you think is better, Marcus Satterfield or Jimbo Fisher at offensive play calling?
Marcus Satterfield.
Yeah, Satterfield.
That's too easy.
I would
Satterfield's
rather
actually
have Mike
pretty
Leach coach a defense than Jimbo Fisher coach an offense.
Satterfield's actually pretty good. He just doesn't have anybody out on the field who wants to play or that actually gives a damn about the program.
That's
What?
true.
I
And
mean, the thing about it is, for Texas
Is
A&M,
for
that
wearing arm
buyout,
sleeves.
And I'm going to be real. This is another thing. Last week, I kind of warmed up to Robbie Ashford, and I was like, you know what? You're getting better. No. I completely
Yeah.
revert everything I've said. That was just a fluke game that you had against Mississippi State because the defense is almost close to poverty. You are not good. You are still a bad quarterback. You are not. You are no longer mid or subpar in my book. You are now back to bad.
Dane.
You had 2 interceptions.
But
You
you
had
have
1
to think he's
touchdown.
still a freshman.
Yeah.
So like you can't put too much pressure on
He's
him
a,
in
he's
a
a third string freshman trying his best. With
bottom
he's
line
trying
is-
his best
no
in a
the bottom
weapons
line,
on
though,
the
is
offensive line.
when you
No
come
weapons
to
on
a
the offensive line.
the bottom line is when you come to the SEC, regardless of what happens, you are an adult now, and you got to realize you are playing in a hard conference, and whatever happens, happens. When Nick Saban tells a player to get on the field, they're not saying just do your best, it'll be fine. No, he's saying you better be ready for this moment because you should be. And I think that same mentality needs to be provided to Ashford, especially considering he just played a poverty A&M team. They are not good.
Dane.
I mean, to give you
No, but you
perspective,
also you
It's not
also
poverty
have to
pass
think you
defense. It's a
also have to
poverty rush
think
defense.
about what tools are given to you and what is surrounding you. Like I agree that like when you're playing SEC football, you know what to expect. You know it's not going to be easy, but it takes time for a player to develop. And I'm not saying it was pretty at all. It was the complete opposite. But give him time. Cadillac Williams is not the coach of the future for the Auburn
Okay,
Tigers.
hold
I
on.
can
agree.
tell you that much.
I agree.
And I can also say that Texas A&M, if I'm the board and I have that oil money that they have, that buyout is not looking too ugly right now.
Wait, real quick, can I say something?
Out
2 things.
of Texas.
2 things. Okay, 1, all of y'all saying that it takes time to prepare. Apparently, y'all didn't watch Robbie Ashford's high school film and notice that he's playing small ball, okay? Everybody he's playing against is not built at all like a high schooler. 2, he made the same decisions, same throws, same everything in high school, and yet was a 4-star quarterback. Why? Because he went to camps. Okay, he made these same
Yep.
mistakes. This isn't. Well, it's not. It's because of the tools he has around him. No, he's been doing this shit for all 4 years of his high school career. And second,
That's
Dane,
not going to change.
Dane, you keep up with Texas A&M. You're quite frankly the one who brings us some of the best Texas A&M takes. Would you see some players that transfer? Would you see Texas A&M's NIL system
Yeah.
taking the money
Yeah,
after they
for
hold on,
sure.
shut up. After they transfer, taking the money they paid to get them there and buying
could
out
see-
Jimbo?
I can definitely see that. The real question is, who would
I
they
think
hire
I
at
think
head
the
coach
Texas A&M
after
transfer
that, and how much
class.
is the league in charge?
I think this will be the most transfers of any SEC school in history. Like more than Tennessee. More
It'll
than
make
Tennessee
to be
in that
honest,
1 year.
This is another cold take.
Look like a little slap on the wrist.
This is another cold
You
take.
guys remember? You guys remember when Tennessee had 30 guys like hit the transfer portal? I think it'll be worse than that. This transfer portal will be wild for A&M.
Yeah,
All right, Lou,
it'll
go
look like a
ahead.
slap on the wrist.
Sorry, this is a cold take, just as a side comment, but I'm starting to believe now that the transfer portal is even more important than the recruiting class.
See, here's the thing about the new era of college football that we're in. With NIL, it's kind of turned the transfer portal as a whole almost into a form of free agency.
Yeah,
It is.
Whoever
It is.
It's whoever pays the most, really. Because now a lot of people, a lot of recruits, they aren't going to look at where am I going to start, where am I going to get the best opportunity.
Where
Now
am I
they're
going to
looking
get the
at,
most
hey,
money?
Where am I going to get the best amount of money? And
How
for
college
people who
students think.
originally committed to play, say a recruit went to like Georgia and he didn't do it for the money. He went because he wanted to help Georgia make a better program. Then all of a sudden, Texas A&M, I'll just use them as the example. They come in there with a handsome bag saying, hey, if you come here, we'll give you this super big NIL deal, and you'll probably be guaranteed to start. He's going to look at that potential $1 million deal and be like, dang, I'm not starting here. I could leave here and get this amount of money. Now a lot of people are just going to have to be like, they're going to have to drop a bag for someone they really want.
Also, hold on. Another thing. Have y'all noticed that a bunch of these 5-star recruits that went to Texas A&M, and we know it's 100% for oil money, has not done anything in the NIL world? Like no announcement.
They're the
with
first
big
number
brands.
one recruiting class to not
Be bowl
make a
eligible.
bowl game.
All right, but with that being said, we've covered this game for a decent amount of time. let's go ahead and talk about
No
it.
time limit, baby.
There's no time limit, but still, we don't want to make it too long that people hate listening to it. So let's go ahead and move it
Fair enough.
to one of the most interesting games of this week that nobody saw happening. I'll give it. I chose.
I saw it happening. I said it would be close. I said it would be.
All right.
All right. So,
Can I start since I was interrupted by Mr. Clean on the Vandy Florida game? Can I just get mine out of the way?
that was 2 games
Are we all
ago.
for that?
That was 2 games ago.
I know,
You could've cut us
no,
off, like,
because
halfway
I never
between
got.
it.
I've never got to get anything out because of
All
Mr.
right, go
Clean,
for it.
and I'm going to get my time now.
All right, make
This
it, make it
game,
fast.
all right. Bama Ole Miss, great game. I was definitely going for Ole Miss in this one. Whatever. This was a really, really close game, and they couldn't convert on a 4th down.
Who are you
And
talking about?
I was working,
Who are you
and
talking about?
I was at the bar watching this. What?
Who are you talking about?
I thought we were going to talk LSU
We were
Arkansas.
talking
We
about
talking
LSU,
Bama Ole
Arkansas.
Miss? Oh
No.
shit, my bad.
All right, yeah, you know what? No. All right,
Mute him.
LSU. Yeah, don't worry. He's getting the Mr. Clean treatment too. All right. So,
Do you want me to speak on this first, Jason?
I'll go for it actually. LSU and
Okay.
Arkansas. All of y'all heard me make the take last week that Arkansas was going to win. And they almost did with a 3rd-string quarterback. And Harold Perkins is him, but for a legitimate reason that like pissed me off. The refs were so against Arkansas in that game, it
Yep.
wasn't even funny.
Yep.
I agree wholeheartedly. That was blatant.
I will
hate
say, though,
calls that happened against them.
the one thing I can say is that really bad play at the end. They called it 4th down instead of it being, or they called it a 4th down, or they called it a 1st down even though it was a 4th down. Sorry, they did get the ball back and still had another chance and still couldn't get it done. So I can't blame that call. With that being said, this game kind of went exactly how I expected, which was LSU winning a close one because, as I like to always call teams overrated, LSU was overrated. Oh, what a surprise! Because they are. I mean, they just what have they done this season to say like they've beat? I know people be like, "Oh, they beat Alabama." What are you talking about? This is the worst Alabama team we've seen in the decade. That win gets less and less impressive by the minute. I mean, they struggled against Ole Miss. They got shut out in the second half versus Mississippi State at home. Like, this is not an impressive team.
I would wholeheartedly agree with that statement. Like LSU, it does not take away the fact that they are still heavily overrated, and that even though Harold Perkins already as a true freshman is probably a top 5 defensive player in college football right now, like I give him all the respect because the way he's able to make plays, like he's going to be a top pick in the NFL draft in a few years. But
Yep.
like, I would not even want to tune in. I'm not even excited for the SEC championship this year. I'm not going to lie, between Georgia and LSU.
Completely
Because
agree.
we all know that Georgia is going to win by more than
unless
2
Georgia-
possessions, and they could even potentially win by 3 possessions.
Jaron, unless Georgia wants Tennessee to miss the playoff and doesn't try and just lets LSU win. 'Cause if
I
LSU
still
wins
don't see that's the case.
championship, are you going to say no to them in the playoffs?
I just don't think that's the case. I think that Georgia is going to absolutely obliterate LSU. I don't think they're just going
completely
to. I don't
agree.
think that they're. I don't think they're going to sell.
I'm
Like,
just saying they
you
could
wanna play
sell
the
just
best
to screw
team.
Tennessee over.
I mean, they could, but that'd be pretty low of them, and just show how scared of competition they are.
In its own right, if you think about that.
That's what I'm saying. So, like,
that's not
I'm not
smart.
excited.
By a franchise in general, you're wasting the opportunity to play deep into a playoff run just to prevent another team from getting in. That doesn't really seem smart in any shape or way.
That's also a working theory that's probably not true because at the end of the day, we've basically never seen that happen. Teams
Yeah, no,
don't
I've
collaborate
never-
and say we're going to throw this game
Georgia,
so we can get an
Auburn,
easier schedule.
2018.
Yeah, someone's not going to be like, all right, we
The
don't
SEC
want this team in
championship
here,
when
so
Alabama
we're going to
wasn't in the
sell
ship
so
and
they don't
came
make it
back and
in.
won the Natty. What about that year?
Huh?
Alabama wasn't in the
What year?
Natty. Alabama wasn't in the SEC championship. They were at 5. One team sold. It brings Bama in. Bama comes in, wins the Natty.
It could just be
I
me
just
thinking with morals. I just assume that teams don't do that because it not
Well,
only doesn't seem
unfortunately,
right,
there's
but I
probably
don't
teams
think
that
it's
have
possible.
tried. There's probably teams that have tried.
I just wonder what the playout is gonna be. If KJ Jefferson would have suited up, I wonder what the playout would have been for that game, because we
So would
know
have won.
that he is more talented than Hornsby. And do we think that Fortin is just as dynamic as Jefferson? I feel like Jefferson still has a little bit of an edge over that, and I think that Arkansas would have won if
Yeah.
Jefferson would have played, just
Likely.
because he adds a dynamic that Hornsby and Fortin do not possess.
Accuracy would have been better.
All right, so we've covered this game. Let's go ahead and go to our marquee matchup. Comes down to literally the last minute. Ole Miss and Alabama. What's your opinions on this? And make it quick because we got some stuff to do after this as well.
Can I go first on this one, actually?
Yep, go for it.
Okay. Continuing my point of overrated, and I feel like we can no longer say Alabama's overrated because they've proven it. And the fact that they should have not struggled as much as they did in this game. I know they won. They won the game, and props to them. But considering there have been other teams, such as even LSU, who blew out Ole Miss, this should have been a game that Alabama won decently comfortably. I mean, Ole Miss defense is very mid, and even though their offense is pretty good, I will say Jackson Dart is not a threat. I will say that the running game should have been stopped when you have Will Anderson on that line. But I think that Alabama is arguably the most undisciplined team in football. Nick Saban is not what he used to be. He is no longer a coach that holds players accountable. It's almost every single play I see Dallas Turner get a face mask or a horse collar or a roughing the passer, and he'll just smile and like shake it off, and Nick Saban will be cool with it. Yet, if this was a few years ago, you would have been sat on the bench for the rest of the series, if not multiple drives. I don't understand what happened to Nick Saban, but I am very confident that this might be. We might have just seen his final moments as a top tier coach, and we're going to see Alabama make the playoff less and less going forward.
All right,
Yeah,
I
I'd
just want to
agree.
take this time for anybody that's still, for some reason, listening on Spotify. If you want to see something extremely beautiful, go ahead and come to the same timestamp on YouTube. It is nothing but a room of Mr. Cleans. Apparently, Mr. Clean himself has went somewhere else, so it's just straight Mr. Cleans. If you miss one picture of Mr. Clean with a shaven head, you've got another one. But keep going with y'all's takes.
No, I would just dissect into, what was stated as, Nick Saban is not the elite coach that he once was, and the discipline on that team, he's not able to hold that group as accountable as he once was. I mean, of course, you have highly talented players on that roster that are going to be in the NFL and be elite, but you know, it's not capable of winning a national championship right now. And we would like to think that a Nick Saban led team will be back, but I don't feel as confident that they will be back. It's just not looking like the same team. And I think that the state of NIL has had a huge impact because Nick Saban, was doing stuff, under the radar like a lot of teams, but he was doing it, to a point where he could bring in recruits. But now that NIL is legal and that's a factor, Alabama is not able to, recruit like they were. And I think that we're going to see an Alabama team that I feel like if they want to go to a playoff again, I'd say a coaching change might be in the near future. I don't want to say it's going to happen right away, but it might happen in a year or two.
All right. So, my breakdown of this game, very easy, very simple. Lane Kiffin's a great offensive minded coach. Jackson Dart's just not good. And I know Lane Kiffin loves him like a son. It's like a father-son dynamic. Jackson's not it. Get my boy Luke out there, and that game would have been different.
100%.
Get my boy Luke Automeyer out there, and trust me, Ohio State wins by 7. Or not Ohio State, Ole Miss.
Ohio
my bad.
State.
Yeah, hold on.
The
My bad,
Buckeyes.
I'm tired. Anybody else got
I don't
any
blame
things
you.
before I start the sign-off? Going once, going twice. Goodness gracious, looking at all these bald heads on my screen really threw me off for a second. But thank y'all for joining us for this recap of last weekend. We appreciate it. And like I was telling the boys a couple of days ago, SeatGeek finally approved the code. So make sure you use code all caps V2 Sports on SeatGeek for any purchase that's over $50 for $20 off. It only works for new accounts and users only. So if you want to buy a ticket and you want the $20 off and you've already used somebody else's code, just make a new account, new email address. V2 Sports is not liable for any identity crisis that you go through during this time. And we really appreciate it because it's going to give back to the podcast. It's going to allow, everybody that you're listening to, we're taking time out of our day to do something that we love, and it's taking time away from family and stuff like that. So it's basically a little bit of compensation. We love that. But as most of the money will go to keeping the podcast up and allowing us to bring you better quality, better content, and more in-person interviews, we'll get some more of those towards the off season. We actually just booked one to go up to Knoxville in February. So be on the lookout for that. And make sure you check out our other sponsorship, Pro U Sports, to watch your favorite collegiate athletic alumni. Like your favorite college's athletic alumni, they're in the NFL. It helps for fantasy, and it just helps if you're a stat nerd. So thank y'all for joining us on this episode of Recap. And as always, good morning, good afternoon, and good night from the V2 crew.